Can you tell me what exactly does it mean when you hear somebody say we're using AI?
Yeah, so I think, like you said, because it's been thrown around so much, it's sort of lost its meaning, and it really depends on who's saying it. There's a funny joke around it is that when we're talking to investors, we say AI. When we're hiring people, we say machine learning. And when we actually do the work, we say regression. So, I mean, it really just depends on who's saying it. I mean, I didn't make that line up. I don't actually remember who did said it, but I just, it struck me as really funny. To me, it's actually the A in AI is highly replaceable. I think what a lot of people, when they say it, they mean sort of technology. And to me, that could be anything from a calculator to these really advanced deep learning graphical networks. That could be any sort of like
Right.
anything in between.
Because in a
But
sense, a
like,
calculator is artificial intelligence, correct?
correct. In fact, when you're like using Excel and you pull down to run all those calculations, like you do that one formula and then you pull it down, right? You're doing
Right.
this sort of automated process. And that's actually for me, when I say AI, the A actually doesn't just mean artificial. There's a whole bunch of A's that it could mean. You know, automated being one of them, augmented, accelerated, analytical. Those are actually what I think about, and it really depends on what you're trying to do, and where the technology can be used for. Because you don't need to throw these deep learning models at every single problem. Some problems are just math, like addition and subtraction issues, right? Where you
Right.
just need to really do high level addition, subtraction, or calculus. That's not where you're really running to these statistical computing models. And so that's really, when people talk about AI, I think they mean depending on who's saying it, means technology. I mean, the more technical you get, I think the less likely you are to use AI. So oftentimes it totally depends on who I'm talking to. But when I'm saying AI, I often like AI, right? Like, because it's
Right.
like I don't know what that person's level of expertise is in going from, like, do they know how to use a calculator? Do they know how to build? Do they know how to code? Do they know how to code statistical programming? Do they know how to build machine learning models? And right, are they running TensorFlow? So there's a whole spectrum, right, of what that could mean, and so it's very conversation dependent. But I consider myself, like, I say AI, but I consider myself a data scientist. So I'm running experiments on data. So that's, to me, is sort of like the pinnacle of what AI is supposed to be. Where when people say big data, I mean, like, what does it mean to be big, right?
Right.
So like, it's totally relative, right? Like, the Earth is big, but not relative to the sun, right? So like,
Sure.
yeah, so there's all these sort of intersections about what it means. And so again, I think it totally depends on what. To me, it's all about what you're trying to do, right? Like, AI is a tool set. It's like a toolkit, right? And so if you're trying to solve certain problems, use a calculator. It's trying to solve how to teach a machine how to read, CT scans or X-rays. You need to use deep learning models. But in both
Right.
cases, you're sort of using some version of AI.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And with respect to evolve, and I understand we maybe can't dig in too deep, but how, and when we say we're using AI, what does that mean? How should that be understood?
Yeah, we're using our technologies, our computational technologies, to extract knowledge from data. But we're not trying to extract the knowledge. We're allowing the computer to extract the knowledge from the data. When you get into the scale of what we're trying to do, a human can't process 80 billion data points. I mean, it sort of are. Our brains are sort of processing like billions and billions and billions of data points. But we're not consciously doing that, right? So all the information we're collecting, all the light coming into our eyes, all the sound coming into our ears, that's a lot of data coming at us at once. But we're not consciously sort of discerning certain patterns, and I think that's really what's happening at the machines level, is where it's extracting patterns from billions and billions of data points. I mean, I think a last check, we're looking at roughly about 80 billion data points, and what we're doing is we're trying to extract patterns and knowledge from these gene sequences to make to help a computer understand what's going on in evolution, so that when we try to make decisions about what types of new drugs to make, the computer is really modeling what could actually occur in nature, so that we're not trying to break the laws of nature. We're trying to work within the laws of nature to try to make new ways to help heal people. Discovery in the laboratory is a very laborious, costly process that takes a lot of time, and we can run these huge amount of experiments in the computer at a much faster rate and really fail in the computer, because we're not going to say that we're going to be more successful by using the computer. We're just trying to fail inside the computer.
All right, awesome, Andrew. Thank you for that breakdown and for the more detail with Evolve. So I guess if I can dig a little bit deeper there, now of all the A's you mentioned in that first segment, what are we really leveraging the most? Or are we kind of leveraging a bit of everything?
Yeah, we're really leveraging a bit of everything in order to. So we're leveraging the analytical process, the accelerate process, and the automation process to augment the data science, the life scientists, the biologists, the medicinal chemists, the people working in the laboratories. Really, that's what we're trying to do, so that you know when you're operating something, I'm assuming that like most people don't want to be an automaton. They don't want to repeat the same process over and over and over again. I mean, you remember doing multiplication tables and addition as a kid, and
I
like
do.
that must have that drove me crazy. I love math, right? That drove me crazy. Just like repeat the
Yeah.
same thing over and over and over again. You think about some of the things that we do on a daily basis, right? That we're doing over and over and over again. We really want to automate some of these processes, right? So what we're trying to do is really try to, by doing this automation in the computer and letting the computer do the analysis and learn from the analysis, and then do that in a really, really accelerated and rapid manner where we can have all that occurring at the same exact time, we can actually reduce the amount of time that those people who have PhDs and postdocs from major institutions, where we can really augment them by turning those really automatic, rote processes into things that can be done in the computer to a certain extent. I mean, it's not solving everything, but basically doing a lot of that so that we can take those processes away from having to be done in the laboratory. And so that when the actual person working in the laboratory is doing the work, we're augmenting what they're doing. And they're really there to maximize the utilization of their knowledge. Computers today are very, very, very bad at picking up, are being intuitive, right? They're not there yet. There's no intuition in a computer, right? As of today.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's some people working on some of this stuff, and I'm probably going to get somebody who's going to critique my idea
Right,
about like,
right,
oh
right.
yeah, there's someone there. I'm working on intuition, but by and large, like machines are intuitive in nature, and if they are, we haven't figured out to understand how they're intuitive.
Right.
But humans are incredibly intuitive. I mean, instinct is like hugely useful, and it's a hugely useful tool for humans. And so, if we can really rely more on the intuition and the creativity of humans in a way that machines can't do, and people that are working in these laboratories, and take away some of these mundane processes that don't allow us to access our intuition and creativity by putting those things into the computer, by letting the computer do those things.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel a common refrain you hear from people who are somewhat concerned over AI, and perhaps understandably so, is that they feel it kind of could strip us of our humanity. And I think kind of what you're explaining is like, in fact, it's exactly the opposite. This allows us to be humans, right? To kind of avoid those mundane, repetitive tasks that really are more suited for a computer, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, think about it like Uber, right? Or you in the past you might have had to call a taxi service the day before, hope that they showed up, didn't know
Right.
where they were, right? Like all this different process. Like the AI that Uber offers is not replacing the driver, not replacing the car. It's just augmenting the process to make our lives simpler and easier.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure that people in the what I would consider the more traditional business model of taxi services probably aren't happy about
They're not.
Uber,
Yeah.
but it created a whole workforce that didn't exist a decade ago, or even less, right? And so if we think about that, we can create a whole new set of individuals who can do this work, or maximizing the intellect of the individuals who are already doing the work,
Right.
right?
Right.
So where you get a very specialized individual. So, maybe the taxi drivers now become limousine drivers, or right,
Right.
they become charter bus drivers, where that's not an Uberable product, right?
Right.
Where you really need that specialization to be able to operate those vehicles. Now, I think that like self-driving cars are probably going to replace that in the
Yeah,
near
maybe not the
future.
best example, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I mean, but yeah, I totally agree with you. But I mean, the thinking about it was that like how we can use these processes to augment our existing way of being and doing. And so I also think about it in terms of this allows us to start to transition the workforce into the 21st century. If I can automate some of your processes away, right? Let's say I can automate 20% of what you do. And we're working on a 5-day work week, which was what was that invented in the 30s or the 1930s or 1920s? I mean, it was like, it was not a, it was like a, right? So we're talking about a early
Yeah, it came
20th
about from
century.
labor unions. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the early 20th century
Yeah.
solution to the workforce for the
Right.
result of the industrial revolution. But what if I can automate your 20% of your job? Does that mean I need to get rid of 20% of my workforce? Or does that mean you can work, you can have a 3-day weekend,
Right.
right? So I think that it's actually AI may offer an opportunity for humanity to become more human, right? We
Right.
always have this balance between like um, work and leisure, right?
Right.
And right now it's like there's that song, everybody's working for the weekend, right?
Right.
Like I'm probably dating myself by saying the name of that song, but like if we can sort of everybody's working to automate so that we can have more time to do the things that are not in work, and maybe they're more leisurely, we hope potentially, I mean, I hope for humanity, we spend more time educating ourselves, we spend more quality time with our family members, like we're not devoting it, we're losing, if you think about it, like Saturday and Sunday, that's the day you hop off. I remember historically as a child and for most of my life devoting Sundays to chores, right?
Right.
Cleaning
Right.
your house, doing your
Yeah.
laundry,
Yeah.
going food shopping, right? Like, what if you had 2 days for a weekend, right, where
Right.
you can do things and like, so I mean, I think about that for our organization, right? As we can automate more and more and more, I want to give people I mean, and we want as a team to have more time for ourselves to do things, right?
That
That we
makes
can
sense.
spend to write a book, or like be politically active or volunteer, or like spend time with our family or our loved ones or
Right.
whatever. I mean, anything that we want to do for ourselves, we have more time for it, where it's less about the economic drivers, and it's all based upon the idea of automating more. So I think about that fact, and I think there's a there's something to be said about people's resistance or fear about that, right? Like AI taking our jobs. I don't disagree that there's going to be a certain segment of the population that probably needs to be have novel educational training where they can learn new skills. But I think that we can start to transition the workforce by, instead of saying, hey, let's lay off 20% of our workforce, keep that 20% of the workforce, because they're full of creativity, they're full of experience, they're full of
Right.
intuition that you'll lose if you get rid of them, and just shave a day off. And if you're automating that process, it means that your profitability as an organization is going to continue to go up. But I don't actually think profit should be the only decision calculus you make, right? We need to care about people. We need to care about those people who are helping us build our organizations. And so if it's all bottom line, and right, like, then are we really fulfilling or being predictive of what's going to happen in the future? And and those companies that are not willing to innovate and change or try different mechanisms, they're gonna go the way of the dinosaur, right? And so we have to try new things.
Right.
Listen, we could fail at them, but at least we
Right.
gave it a shot.
Right. No, absolutely. I think that makes sense. All right. Awesome. Andrew, thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.